Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as we're going to discuss how Uranus in Taurus has been drastically changing your life and your world since 2018, which is also now preparing you for the rapid changes and new choices that will be appearing as Uranus moves into Gemini on April 24th, 2026, and stays in this third sign of the zodiac until 2033. It can be helpful to see what Uranus has been disrupting in the Taurus areas of your life and how it is preparing you for what is to come now with Uranus in Gemini. Every sign in the zodiac is very different, and so there is an interesting rhythm that unfolds as planets move from one sign to the other. They switch between feminine to masculine. They change modalities, they change elements. And so as Uranus returns to Gemini, there's going to be more fast-moving breakthroughs and developments that are right on time because of what has been disrupted and liberated from the Uranus in Taurus years. Uranus first entered Taurus back in 2018, so this might be an interesting time to look back on what has drastically changed in your everyday physical world since 2018, because this is where Uranus, which is about breakthroughs, sudden changes, feeling blindsided, abrupt shifts and destabilizing energies, has been moving through the fixed earth qualities of Taurus, which seek comfort, stability, reliability, wanting to know what can I count on in this ever-changing world. And so we establish certain patterns, habits, and attachments in Taurus in order to have a solid life and to build our personal world based on what we value, what we need. Well, Uranus has been coming through, uprooting and permanently changing our Taurus energies and expressions to the point where you could be shocked at what you have moved through since 2018. So what you want to do is identify where you have all 30 degrees of Taurus in your chart based on house or houses. So starting at 0 degrees all the way to 29 degrees of Taurus is where Uranus has been shaking and quaking up your world. And this involves everything that Taurus rules. So Taurus governs money, income, financial systems, the earth, resources, values, consistency, stability, pleasure, the body, your physical needs, where you go to feel connected to the earth. Taurus is about how we need basic survival essentials in order to be on this planet. So at a bare minimum, it is food, shelter, water, clothing. But as that Taurus energy evolves, we start to choose and want different things in our reality and in our world. Uranus has been requiring us to stay adaptable to these parts of our lives that we thought would be solid and true. Well, now as Uranus moves into Gemini, we're going to see more of what we had to let go of and change in order to be more open to these new, faster moving energies that Uranus and Gemini is going to be exposing us to. But first, let's touch on some of the key themes you might have moved through during the Uranus in Taurus phase of awakening. There would have been some kind of radical changes in how you make money, in what you do for your income, salary, or finances. There could have been new ways of making money, so new income models, new ways of innovating what is possible, how you earn a living, what you accumulate, and what you possess. That Taurus energy wants to own things, wants things to be secure, known, and stable because it's yours. And maybe you had some things come up for you that you value, that you realized this isn't working or this is only going so far and I have to change it up here. I need a new approach. And that could have been very destabilizing, especially if it affected your livelihood, your lifestyle, your career, and anything that you had relied upon for a form of financial security. You might have had some sudden shifts in understanding what matters to you in your life, what is essential for you, what really adds value, and what is too excessive, what isn't worth it for whatever that means to you. Maybe there has been a big turnover in understanding what it means to live a life in alignment with your values, meaning where you spend your time and your resources, where you invest your energy, because it applies to what feels good to you, to what lifts you up, and what you have come to understand is important. And that could have resulted in some lifestyle changes or just shifts overall in your time and energetic investment. The Taurus energy prefers simplicity, wants things to be basic, clear, upfront, doesn't want all of the hassles or drama or excess. And maybe there have been phases here in the past 8 years where you have cut out the excess. You have stepped away from things that aren't aligned with what you truly want and what you truly value. This can bring about greater simplicity, as well as potentially strengthened your own energetic foundation. Related to that, Uranus in Taurus could have brought you into a deeper connection with your body, your health, your overall physical symptoms, and your physical needs. This could have brought you into new alignment with understanding what your body needs to feel healthy, strong, and secure. And on a related note, Taurus also relates to food, the earth, agriculture, what is grown in the soil, and how it provides nutrition to the body. So this would bring up what has been changing for you or drastically shifted in your own physical needs and how you source energy from food, your diet, and your health choices that support the body and ideally would purify what you need and what you don't need. We can look back on how food has changed in the past 8 years or so, where food is grown and sourced, the quantity of food that is now available, whereas Taurus prefers the quality. Taurus is absolutely, I want quality over quantity. And how has this opened you up to perhaps being more selective in what you choose every day to nourish your body and sustain your energy? Now, fair to say, I've done a number of shows on Uranus and Taurus since it has had some big energies and significant developments over the past number of years. So I'm not going to repeat what I have shared in those previous podcasts. They are available on YouTube, especially if you want to go to my YouTube channel and look up Uranus and Taurus themes, videos, and podcasts. But what I want to focus on is more about how all of these disruptions that would have been quite uncomfortable, shocking, and even against what you were choosing, against your will, have actually prepared you for where Uranus in Gemini is taking us next. And that's because Uranus needed to disrupt our physical world and our collective value systems in order for us to advance. And advancement is such a big theme here in 2026 and beyond because of how the planets are moving faster, accelerating together. There is a new cohesive energy that is occurring with Uranus in Gemini as it will interact with Pluto in Aquarius, Neptune in Aries, also Jupiter in Leo, and Saturn in Aries. So we have more planets moving into the air and fire signs, and this is where the pulse of life is going to pick up and change. So Uranus in Taurus was breaking open and breaking apart anything that was too dense or heavy in order for us to accelerate. Uranus was requiring us to be more adaptable and to really assess, what do you need, or what do you think you needed, because it kept you safe. It felt secure. It felt comfortable. It was your favorite security blanket. But Uranus and Taurus has actually been guiding us to develop and generate those energies internally, to have a stronger internal core strength that can handle what is rapidly changing outside of us. So the focus has been on, if a lot of things leave your life, if a lot is shifting forms, it's suddenly gone, it's been yanked out of your hands and it's not coming back, what remains that still defines you? And of course, that is your own answer and that is your own exploration to undergo. But Uranus in Taurus is saying, whatever is truly you, whatever is really essential for you in this lifetime to stabilize and trust, is inside of you. It's your core self. It's your internal power that cannot be jolted or dismantled or removed. It can only be tossed and turned around a bit, but then you choose how you're going to strengthen it even more. And so this Uranus in Taurus has been providing a roller coaster ride of changes through Taurus, which does not want change, which does not want things to shift. And in fact, one of the key fears of Taurus is loss. Loss of stability, loss of comfort, loss of income, loss of what has been built. And Uranus has been demonstrating that what is truly you can never be lost, because your self-worth, your relationship to your body, your creativity, your strength, and your willpower always travels with you, even as it changes forms. So there has been many tests here, and depending on your chart, of course, you have been feeling this. So Uranus and Taurus has been working most powerfully with any planets or points in Taurus, although it has also been shaking up any planets or points in the fixed signs of Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius. So if you have planets or points in any of those 4 fixed signs, this has been a time of drastic life disruptions for you, as you know, as you've been through, and yet it's meant to show you that that fixed nature of the fixed signs is developing greater internal strength that isn't about anything outside of you. And so there could have been a new definition, for example, of security, what it means to be secure or to establish a secure life in an ever-changing world. This can certainly support your internal sovereignty, your ability to keep building and to keep strengthening yourself even amongst changes that are very much outside of your control. And that is how Uranus operates, is that it brings in these sudden energy shifts that maybe you didn't see coming, but they revolutionize an area of your life. So you would look back on where you have, again, the Taurus energies in your chart by house or houses, and look at what has been revolutionized for you. And can you see the blessings in it, where you have been set free, where you have been required to not be attached? And that is a big theme with the fixed signs, which attach to people, places, and things. And the exercise with Uranus here has involved breaking apart those attachments and seeing them for what they truly are or represent to you. And so that might be an interesting exploration around, what did this attachment mean to me? What did this represent? What did I invest energy in? And what was the true need? because the Taurus energy is getting to the heart of what you need. What did I need here? What was I seeking here that fulfilled a need and therefore created an attachment? And that could be something interesting to understand and explore if this Uranus transit was very significant for you. Another significant theme of this Uranus and Taurus was to break up the old earth, was to dismantle and shake up what we needed to see as well as feel in order to recreate new foundations and to build on those new foundations. And so that's another way that Uranus in Taurus has come through and given us all these new possibilities to create, ponder, and play with, so that we can move ahead, taking what we need, but leaving behind the rest. So think of it as permanently altering the density of old Earth and of the physical world so that there can be new solutions, approaches, and options that are now readily available as Uranus moves into Gemini. So Gemini is a very different sign than Taurus. Gemini moves fast, and this means that the pace of life speeds up with a Gemini influence. Gemini rules communication, language, teaching and learning, the mind, thought patterns, perceptions, information exchange. Gemini rules movement, networks, connections, education, everyday environments, and immediate travel, including vehicles, bikes, and local commuting options. Gemini is about where our minds go on a daily basis, what we think about, the information we read, what we take in and then want to talk about. It ties in directly to the mind and mental processing. So as Uranus returns to Gemini and moves into a fast-moving, energetic sign, there's going to be rapid awakenings here that will drastically shift our thinking, beliefs, and perceptions. This is where we're going to have more innovation in communication. This includes more multidimensional awareness, more capabilities with AI and other technologies, an increase in telepathy themes and how we pick up information by scanning an environment. We're going to have new ways of connecting, teaching, and sharing information globally and rapidly. There's going to be new things coming online around media, broadcasting, language, and teaching. We're going to also be feeling this in our nervous system quite rapidly as the mind adjusts and picks up on even more stimuli and energies moving around. So we're going to have to learn how to regulate the speed of what we're taking in, as well as learn how to regulate all the stimuli that's unfolding. And this could be quite interesting when you look at your own personal habits, even about how often you check your phone for information or for that dopamine hit, or how often you turn to social media or a website for scrolling to take in new information, to hear what's going on. Our neurological programming is changing, and Uranus in Gemini is going to be making that even more evident. We're also going to have more choices, more things showing up as possibilities and options. And it feels like it could be happening too fast at times because it's going to be based on your own unconscious habits or programming until you make it conscious. So for example, there's things that will present yourself and maybe you'll say yes to it because you've always said yes to that thing. You've always enjoyed it. You've always wanted to read that website or to pursue that hobby. But Uranus and Gemini is going to bring about other choices. And there's going to be a need here to try it out, to sample it, to see if it aligns with who you're becoming and who you are now. And you may be surprised at what it leads to and what unfolds. Uranus is all about surprises. There's going to be surprises in communications, words, speech, language, ideas, projects. All of this is part of the innovative nature of Uranus and Gemini. And it's also going to tap into how fast are you willing to evolve your perception and your perspective? How quickly are you willing to see things in a new light or in a new way? This means that information is going to be moving back and forth. It could be hard to comprehend or fully understand a big picture at times. It might even be tricky to know what are the facts, what is true here, and what is just excess or fake news or false information. So there's going to be a lot that moves around rapidly and wants your mental energy, wants your attention. And part of the mastery of Uranus and Gemini is to remain in control of where the mind goes, of what you seek, of what you read and explore and take in, and also to bring in what you've been developing with your intuition, what you have been harnessing around reading energies and seeing things clearly, because Uranus does have a broader perspective. There's going to be a sense of you're going to know what to focus on, what to choose, and what is accurate, because Uranus is going to remind you of the bigger energetic overlay. I'm seeing this as an overlay of energy that will direct you to what is aligned for you and help you eliminate the rest. And so there's this interesting dance here and merging that unfolds with Uranus and Gemini, where you're meant to integrate what you feel, what you're intuitively sensing, to not allow just the fast moving or shocking news to grab your energy, but to trust what is aligned for you based on what you've already been learning. And I feel that that's part of how Uranus and Gemini is going to be working cohesively with us, where we're going to be able to read the room differently, read the energy in a higher way, pick up on a truth faster, and upgrade our mental perceptions more rapidly. And this will actually be working with you based on your natal Mercury. Your natal Mercury is going to be feeling these effects every day, every hour. And depending on the placement of your Mercury sign, you will feel or sense whether this is exciting, uplifting, and interesting for you, and or perhaps too much, too fast, and overwhelming, or anything in between, of course. Your natal Mercury is going to feel the change in the field once Uranus moves into Gemini and stays in Gemini. Now, Uranus was in Gemini for a few months back in 2025, which would have been a time to sample this experience. Uranus was in Gemini July 7th until November 7th, 2025, which was opening us up to these faster moving dynamics and mental shifts. Now, as Uranus returns to Gemini, the energy is really going to take off. And again, it comes down to how your Mercury digests information, how quickly you think, process, and understand what is going on all around you. This is because Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury is the personal planet associated with our human mind and our mental energy. So in addition to looking at where you have Gemini energies in your chart, since Uranus will move in to Gemini and stay there, you also would look at your natal Mercury to get a heads up, literally, on how this faster moving information stream is going to be affecting you and working with you. So keep in mind, this means your Mercury could be in any astrology sign. And it's going to be feeling the effects of Uranus going into Gemini, because we're going to have, think of it as new thought waves pulsing around us, a lot more ideas, a lot more choices, options, conversations, talking points, innovations, plans, and all of that is going to affect what we individually process and contemplate. So your natal Mercury in any astrology sign is going to again be feeling how Uranus in Gemini is going to quicken the pace of what you're meant to decide. You might feel you have to make faster choices. That's what this energy will bring about. Maybe you need more time to process, plan, or bring something together. And then here we have Uranus and Gemini saying, actually, we need you to decide within the hour. So this is something that we're all going to be adapting to, and it will be working with each of us in a unique way based on, again, how your natal Mercury naturally processes and thinks things through. So on that note, I also want to do a bit of a full circle moment here, bringing it back to Uranus and Taurus and how Taurus is ruled by Venus. So as Uranus completes its journey through Taurus this month, you might find it fascinating to look at how this energy has changed your natal Venus. Again, your Venus could be in any astrology sign. But as Uranus has moved through Taurus, it has asked us to shake up and redefine what we value, create, need, want, and require in our lives. These are all Venusian energies, Venusian principles. And so if you were to look at your natal Venus, how has that natal Venus been affected by the Uranus in Taurus years? Where have you needed to redefine relationships, love, connection, attachment styles? Where have you been required to look at more of your value system, what you save, earn, possess, own, obtain? Where have you felt a deep change in your own self-worth and self-value? Where you have come to understand more of what you're worthy of based on a stronger core self-love frequency? Where has your creation abilities and potentials changed? Meaning what you've created maybe has felt like it's been inconsistent, unpredictable, varied. How has this applied to your natal Venus, which is where you find pleasure, joy, and happiness in doing what you love? So this is another way to make these transits more personal, because of the fact that Uranus has moved through Taurus and will enter into Gemini. Both of these astrology signs directly relate to personal planets in your natal chart. And so for some of you, this could be a little bit more advanced astrology knowledge. I might have lost you along the way explaining all this, but I know that many of you are more intermediate and advanced in your astrological wisdom. So I hope this helps you dissect even further how Uranus has been disrupting and ultimately awakening you to even more of your self-love, self-worth, and creative power while it moved through Taurus. And now as it enters Gemini, it's going to be shaking up our thought processes, including what we have assumed, what we thought we knew, and how we have naturally processed information. We're going to have a much more expansive experience as Uranus moves into Gemini. Now, I did do a previous episode for you about Uranus going into Gemini last year. I released that episode last July, and it's called Living with Your Higher Twin Consciousness. I will link that one here, that episode, so that you can listen to it again, as it's more of an introductory understanding of the Uranus in Gemini themes that are coming our way, including the disruptions, changes, and new sparks of life that Gemini will be bringing into our awareness. Plus, there's an element of twin consciousness opening up, and that's because Gemini is the twins. And so I was receiving guidance that the twin consciousness is your higher self consciousness arriving to help shake off any limitations and support your own mental expansion. So I will link that podcast here, and I hope that assists you in preparing for more of these dynamic changes that are happening in April 2026. As always, thank you so much for joining me for this podcast. I will be back on Wednesday to look at the weekly energies ahead, as we do every Wednesday. And I have also shifted back to doing this podcast 2 times a week since we have moved through some of the major changes of 2026 so far. So I will be doing this show every Monday and Wednesday, and I look forward to continuing to connect with you as we move through these big energies together. Thank you so much for your time, energy, and presence, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Have a beautiful day ahead.